Okay. Tell us about your inspiration, Claire.
Okay, well, Miranda and I were chatting in the Co-Creation Cafe this evening, and as serendipity does her job, the two of us had a lot of overlaps. And the background that I shared with her was to do with a healing background, like originally energy healing work that has sort of transformed into social healing. And she used to be a nurse, and she also has a strong background in different kinds of energy work. And she's sort of switched into this digital platform where she's looking to create more intentional communities that can do holistic healing.
Hmm.
So we had these things sort of in common. And then she said this interesting thing about, well, and if someone's not behaving, you can just remove them. And I said, well, actually, in Extinction Rebellion, we don't do that. We facilitate dialogues, and we use empathy circles to try to find a new level of connection and inclusion. And I said, and so in my perfect world, that would be just a given, that no one has to be afraid of being kicked out. So then I started saying to her, I'm starting to think of systems like nextdoor.com. I said, nextdoor.com has done a really great job of people sharing in community, like ideas and concerns. I said, but it can be a bit petty, like people can start policing in a slightly aggressive way. But it's really good for trading things and people gifting each other things. So I said, so you've got that there. And then I mentioned Craigslist, and I said, the thing about Craigslist is that it has maintained a community spirit. And there's something about it that feels unique in that sense. But wouldn't it be great if you could kind of take those two platforms, sort of mesh them together, but come up with something that's more interactive, where people can trade skills? You can have a teaching section where people can teach ideas online, like permaculture or off-grid, like alternative forms of energy, stuff to do with energy, human energy and human energy fields. And that people could use, it could be a platform where people can sort of sink into time banking. And what else did we come up with? Oh, a strong focus on mental health. And that was a big part of the not isolating or kicking people out, is that also by having a platform where people know they can go and ask for support and help, especially now with COVID and however long that goes on, that's going to set a great precedent for people actually asking for help instead of thinking that we all have to do things on our own. So it's also for solution sharing, social cohesion. I guess you could have like a facilitator, a circle might be, or community. So it'd be like a bubble community, but then with these active elements in it where people sort of naturally gravitate. So it would be very much to do, here's a big sentence, how do we create a mainstream shift in consciousness so that communities can become more aware of each other on the local level and support each other's well-being, spiritual upliftment and inclusion whilst getting their basic needs met. So that was kind of the idea.
Yeah, it's a big, bold vision. So this is much more than just an idea for something on the cafe menu, which is what I thought you were hatching. This is
well, it got, yeah, it can't.
Yeah.
That was the original intention, was to have a conversation about what can we offer. So what we could offer in terms of in a cafe is visioning on that idea, and is there a quality or a skill that you have that you could imagine using in such a way.
Yeah.
And then what you said, Ben, earlier, this sort of later this evening but earlier than right now, about how many of these communities already exist. And then you mentioned IdeaPod and Palmer, I think his name was.
Harlem.
Thank you for this world. And so they're interesting. They have a slightly different take on it, but there's an impulse happening.
I think
where
there are
people are
many
coming
things like
together.
this. Yeah, I think there are, and for every one we find, there's probably 1,000 others. I think
Yeah.
that's happening.
I mean,
Um,
so just to create, even just to create a network where all of them become aware of each other. So if you need something that's local,
yeah. Now, so I'm curious to just understand more clearly. Is it the Craigslist and Nextdoor? Is it that you're inspired by what they're doing, or are you actually imagining leveraging the networks that exist on those platforms?
well, actually, I was thinking more of the former, but it would make more sense to go with the latter. I mean, I don't know that I have the energy to do that because I've got other things, other
Yeah.
projects I'm working on, but just the combination of our knowledge base and interests, that's what's synthesized. Because
Hmm.
I said, look, let's see what between the two of us we could co-create for a cafe, since that's the breakout room we were in. And of course, it just kind of got rather large. But I see that, if we're going to start living, it's going to be kind of interesting because in a way we're going to start living a more virtual world. I think there'll be a hangover from COVID where people will have learned that actually we can do a lot virtually,
Oh yeah.
but at the same time to create more proactive local community level engagement with each other. You know,
Yeah, right. Well, and that's what Nextdoor does. So it's really
exactly.
it's a using virtual engagement as a way to support in-person connection, and that to me is a fundamental pattern of how we can skillfully use our virtual capacities. Is that we should always be looking for how to integrate it with in-person dimensions. So
Yeah. The thing that's often missing in these more mainstream communities, online communities, is an intentional focus on improving our communication, improving self-responsibility, improving relational dynamics, and actually being interested in our own sort of spiritual evolution.
hmm.
And I find that interesting to have that in there as part of a mandate. Sounds a bit strong, but part of an intention. So you get the trading element, you get like practical things, and it's kind of like a live-in intentional community, but in the virtual realms, that happens to show up physically because you would have a local geography as
Right.
well.
I'm very interested in the translocal pattern where there are multiple in-person groups, spread all around. Could be a bioregion, could be a country, could
Yeah.
be the globe, that are engaged in something together or in parallel, as well as focused on where they are physically. And um, I think there's a lot of potential for things to happen through that kind of translocal connecting. We're just learning how to do it.
And wouldn't it be nice to keep it run by the community, cooperatively run somehow, so that you don't end up with a Facebook system where it becomes very political and um, what's that word, monetized as a community, like where it starts feeding on the community members.
Yeah, yeah. Well, certainly not right, an advertising-driven extractive model would be unfortunate. And of course, there are lots of people working on alternatives, and this could be a good way to energize some of those. There are a lot of platforms out there that were designed as open source, non-extractive alternatives to mainstream social media, and the whole challenge with them is that everybody's already on Facebook. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're creating this global community space, and there's enough juice and energy there, then I think people will start spending time in these platforms because that's where that's happening, right? And they care about that. So it could be a way to help transition people, maybe wean them off of some of the traditional spaces that are
Yes,
less
because
than ideal.
people stay with them. I think people staying with them in spite of knowing some of the cost, you know, in terms of cost to our integrity, shows such a strong desire to actually have connection.
Yeah.
So that impulse is there, and strangely, I haven't thought of this friend for a long time. A friend of mine called Michael, who lives in Santa Cruz, California. He has been talking for years about exactly this, and I didn't understand it because
Is
of
his
how
last name?
Michael Mitchell.
Michael Mitchell.
But I'm going to reach out to him because I think I finally understand what he's been talking about.
Ah.
And I don't think he was explaining it in a way that made it easy to track, because he's an end user designer. It's like he did I think a PhD in the psychology of interface design.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah,
he's like a mad scientist with
mhm.
a workshop, like a converted garage that's just full of things like connecting. But he couldn't get past that, like, because it just was so huge. The concept was so huge and detailed. So yeah, I'm going to actually reach out to him and say, is this what you meant?
Hmm, hmm, hmm. I sometimes wonder, if we had, it's probably, probably talking about something like $5 million to create,
Yeah.
a really slick user interface to do what we're doing by cobbling together all these different tools. And it would still be kind of a dashboard that connects you up to all that stuff. I think we'd still want to use YouTube and Facebook and things because that's what people know how to do. Or maybe not YouTube, I don't know. But to have it be, easier to figure out what's going on. Although there's so much going on that I think even with those skills of, really brilliant UX design, it's still going to be a bit dizzying to people. It's like trying to understand a whole forest. You can't do it in 5 minutes.
Well, when I teach students at the university, one of the things I say to them right up front is, if you start to feel uncomfortable or anxious, then it means you've started to learn something. And don't panic. Just remind yourself that you're capable,
Right.
that you need to just repeat. It will become more and more familiar. And then you've entered a whole new room in a house. Like, you've got a
Yeah.
whole new thing that you can reach.
And
So
of
I
course,
think
our technology is Silicon Valley is trying to not do that, right? They want us to not feel at all uncomfortable or challenged. They want it to be so easy you don't even realize you've just allowed them to track your every move and own all your
yeah.
data. And I think so. We're sort of spoiled in a way by that, but we've lost something too, our willingness to have to even ride a little
Well,
bit of a learning curve.
there's that, and I think we've also lost the sense of consequence, because those virtual bubbles remain bubbles. They don't really extend into a lived life.
Yeah, yeah, or only in commercial ways.
Right.
People
Yeah.
trying to sell us things well, in many cases we need. I mean, it is kind of amazing actually how that all works, and it's not all bad.
Yeah. So that was the great adventure for tonight's call.
Yeah, the Now What Cafe. Here we are winding down. We have somebody working in the background of the cafe. As would often be the case. We're here chatting and there's somebody on. Hey, Michelle. You're muted or
Why
somehow.
can't we
You're
hear him? He
not muted,
doesn't.
but we don't hear you. No,
No,
you
now
weren't
you're
muted on
definitely
Zoom.
muted.
It's just your microphone. Now you are muted on Zoom. Oh, there we go. Now we got it.
There you are.
Yeah, I put it on muted on the microphone. Yeah, it's great. It feels like a home office with friends around me, and I'm just discovering this possibility. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I've
really,
heard Ted Rao from Sociocracy for All actually has talked about the idea of sort of co-working on Zoom. So you get on a call for 50 minutes out of the hour, you're just doing your own stuff, but you're all there together. But then like at the last 10 minutes or something, you get together and check in, or maybe you say, well, here's what I need to do. And you sort of hold yourselves accountable and you just feel like you're not alone at your desk.
It's very nice. I like it too.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Ah,
We could try
And I'm
that.
well,
trying to find my way in the network thing, because when I have to explain that tomorrow, I have to know how it works. But it's a bit complicated to find through how I get in and how I can change and connect,
Talking about the
etc.
map.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to the help page on the website, there's a video tutorial, and that
Yeah.
might be useful to watch.
Yeah.
I would also
Okay.
say, in that host role, you need to go, Claire. Let's stop the recording. Yeah, so thanks. That's really exciting to see that generating, and yeah, who knows?
Yeah, and I appreciate that it's prompting me to get in touch with a dear friend, and just he's going to feel so validated. It's like, yes, that's it. So
Yeah, invite him to the cafe.
I will.
Great.
I will. I think he'll really appreciate it. There's a lot of stuff, especially the Kumu. I love that map. God, it's like watching.
And then we have these games to play. Have you done the Now What Oracle yet, or you've been woven?
I haven't done the Oracle. I was on one call with you that we played games, but I can't remember exactly what the games were, but they were funny and fun.
Yeah.
Um,
There was This Song's for You. At the closing of the last Now What edition,
Okay.
we did some party games, and then yeah, so there's sort of fun ways to use the map, get used to it, and also, see some of the value that's there. People have put so much into that in their profiles and what they're offering, and
Yeah.
we need just good reasons to go in and look at it and get to know them better, even if they're not here.
I really appreciate this active time. To come back in and really understand the just wonderful complexity that you have created, and that we can step into and start to kind of push into a bit, and add shape.
Yeah, and I think
Populate it.
we're just figuring it out still, and I'm already thinking about the next edition of Now What, and how the things we're sort of that are just starting to take shape now could really have some form and structure by the next time. Meanwhile, we have
Yeah.
3.5 weeks still to go here.
I know, it's great. My friends can't understand why I'm so busy. They're like, on another Zoom call.
Yeah, speaking of which, I think it's time for me to move off of this one.
All right. Well, good night to both of you.
Yeah. Good night.
You
See
too.
you
See you.
morning, Ben.
I will see. I think I'm going to see you tomorrow.
Okay.
What is tomorrow? Thursday.